Welcome to episode 2 of Project Psyclone. If you haven't seen episode 1, we took a GMC Canyon destined for the scrapyard with an engine literally knocking on death's door, and we transplanted it with a stroked 6.8 liter LS engine with a Texas Speed cam kit, an all-wheel drive system from an Escalade, an assortment of C6 Corvette parts from the front suspension and brakes, and then Holley's Terminator X-Max ECU to control it all. With this hodgepodge of GM parts, we were able to click off a 3.67 second 0 to 60 time on junk 460 tread wear tires on a dusty back road. But we want more, a lot more. The goal in this episode is to get the truck running on corn fuel, ethanol, specifically E85. We believe with the help of octane, we can squeeze more power out of the truck to chip away at those 0 to 60 times. But before we can get into that, we have to fix the truck. So you can see the engine is out. We ran into a couple issues with the Psyclone. We probably have like 20 to 30 launches on it. We ran into some issues. So we're gonna go over each issue specifically, how we plan to fix it. And firstly is going to be the oil pan. We sprung a leak. We built the oil pan specifically to clearance the front differential and the mounting points, and it's like a little recessed pocket that we built in there, kind of sprung a leak. So
we basically ended up hitting the steering shaft bolt or steering column bolt enough to where it knocked a pinhole. But we wanted to do this anyway. There's some stuff we wanted to check on and clean up, make a couple hits. We built the truck to be able to pull it apart quick. Yeah. I mean, we drove it in, and an hour later, the motor was sitting right there.
Yeah. Just go over the setup, because I guess in the previous video, I kind of glazed over it, but I think the front differential setup is really kind of the key ticket here, or why this truck is pretty unique.
And that's kind of what started us on me and you was like, hey, we bought a bunch of parts over the years, and we're like, okay, we always had in mind of using this diff. It's an Escalade diff. We bought an Escalade donor vehicle. That way we had the motor, the transfer case, and front differential, and whatever other parts we need. The original diff had some plates. We can look at them later, but they had some plates that bolted up into the bottom of this frame and came down, and it mounted to a flange, and it was round. So we went in and measured that, and I machined a piece of aluminum that bolted up to the flange for the diff and set the center spacing, and let us bolt the diff up that way, so that we put it on the same center lines that the vehicle had beforehand. So when we did that, we could hold the diff in and look at angles, seeing what we had to do steering column wise. We were lucky. At first we didn't think it, but the steering column ended up clearing. Yeah. I think there was some minor, basically I just kind of pushed out some of the hard lines to clear, and that worked just fine. So at that point we were able to go in, check where we needed clearance. We set the angle we wanted to set, and then we machined some little pieces with a bar between them, and we bolted those up, and then we made some other little pieces, and then we just fabricated, kind of stovepiped it, and then after that we kind of set the motor where it needed to be, and then built the motor mounts into that we wanted to keep it to where the motor mount and this were mounted the same. That way there wasn't we minimized the amount of flex there was between, front differential and oil pan, because we have all that stuff so close. As you can see, we didn't make enough clearance for that bolt.
So we ran into another issue. If you look at this exhaust system, obviously this isn't anything specific for a Canyon. This is all custom. But we thought, and we're still contemplating about this, getting heat into the exhaust system, there may have been some tension here, and it allowed the collector to twist a little bit. We've never seen this issue before, and pretty much every 50 or so LS swaps we've done, we've really never ran into this issue before. Obviously, whenever we had that issue where it was hitting the rev limiter, you saw flame shoot out the exhaust, so it was getting some heat into the exhaust system, and it could just have a little bit of tension in there, maybe from being welded, and then kind of twist a little bit. But flow-wise, there's not really, there's like a kink at the top. It still merges pretty smoothly, so I don't think there's going to be a whole bunch of turbulence and back pressure issues going on.
I don't think it's enough to affect us at this power level.
Yeah, 550 or whatever,
Yeah, I mean,
it's not really going to be a that big of a concern. But it's still something that I've never seen before, and I want to see if you guys have seen this before and kind of give us some pointers on that. But
yeah, or theories.
Yeah, theories, yeah. Conspiracies.
With the oil pan fixed, axle boot repaired, and body back on the frame, next is getting the truck to be able to accept E85 as a fuel, and there's actually a lot to know about corn alcohol. According to the US Department of Energy, E85 or flex fuel refers to an ethanol and gasoline blend containing 51% to 83% ethanol depending on the region and season, meaning the other 49% or less consists of gasoline that is the equivalent to, you guessed it, toilet bowl water. Nonetheless, the latent heat of vaporization, or the amount of heat absorbed by the molecule when transitioning from a liquid state in a fuel rail to a vapor state when atomized after injection, is almost double when comparing gasoline to pure ethanol, and this creates a cooler air charge that is denser with oxygen, equating to a higher octane number and the ability to make more power with advanced ignition timing. The higher octane properties of ethanol get you closer to maximum brake torque, or the optimal ignition timing relative to the crankshaft, before you reach the instability of the fuel itself. Now, there are some important things to note. The stoichiometric value of E85 is much lower than gasoline, around 9.87 to 1 AFR versus 14.7 to 1 AFR respectively, which means you need to burn approximately 35% more fuel to maintain proper combustion, which heavily taxes the fuel system. Luckily, in the previous video, Holley provided us with a dual 450 liter per hour pump assembly that exceeds our pumping needs, but our stock LS3 injectors that are rated for 42 pounds per hour at 58 psi base fuel pressure will be beyond maxed out. So we opted for Holley's fuel injectors, which will suffice for a stroker LS3 that's naturally aspirated on E85. Now that the truck is running on E85 after installing the GM Flex Fuel sensor and connected to the Terminator ECU inputs, let's get it out on the road and see how it performs.
It handles good. Jump.
I'm not pushing that hard yet.
Yeah. Dude, it handles good. Yeah. This is a truck. I'm holding on for dear life. And the seats are holding me pretty good, so.
With the truck running pretty good, not perfect, there's still tweaks to be made in the fueling and timing, but let's see what it can pull off and if we can best our previous record of 3.67 seconds to 60. I think we're done for the day because it's kind of raining pretty bad out here. We're all trying to skedaddle. We don't got no hood on the Canyon, so it can only stay in the wet for so long. Oh yeah. Well, we did improve, but only by a small margin. There's something interesting happening. If you look at the accelerometer reading from the previous best to now, it never dropped below 0.5 G of acceleration, but with this run it dipped further down before the shift, which could be a myriad of things like torque management trying to keep the 200,000 mile 6L80 alive, or air fuel at 7,000 RPM needs to be more dialed in, and what sucks is since it's all-wheel drive, we can't put it on the dyno because unlike four-wheel drive transfer cases where you can put it in two-wheel drive, the Borg-Warner 4485 transfer case is full-time four-wheel drive. It also doesn't help that we are literally trying to make passes between windows of rain, so all this rushing to make a pass isn't really helping us dial the truck in. I know excuses, but at least the truck sounds good though. While the truck is really quick for what it is, we know for a fact some ported heads would really wake up this engine because it's a stroker LS3 running some factory LS3 castings, which are great for a factory LS3, but not this particularly. I mean, Texas Speed does have those badass brawler CNC ported heads in stock on the shelves, ready to go. Texas Speed, let's see what we can do on some brawlers on this 416, but next video, I guarantee you, we will get into the sub 350s, and I mean by any means necessary.